Hey everybody, welcome to my kitchen. Earlier this week I read an article online on Outside Magazine called "You've Been Cooking Chicken Breasts Wrong," which intrigued me because I think I'm pretty good at cooking chicken breasts actually. And so I read through the article, and as luck would have it, the author actually tells you how to cook everything wrong. He starts with the wrong cooking vessel, which is a Dutch oven, and then recommends using, and I quote, 1 drop of olive oil and high heat, which is going to give you a burned exterior on the chicken breast. And then he recommends covering it and simmering for 10 minutes, which more than likely will end up with an overcooked chicken breast that is also rubbery. So I thought I'd take a few minutes here to show you how I cook a chicken breast. It turns out beautifully for me every time, and I guarantee you it'll be better than this one and taste better as well. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to apply some basics. Some kosher salt, and we're just going to season that. And we're going to put a pretty good amount just so it coats it. Hopefully you can see that there. And then we're going to go with some fresh ground black pepper. Pretty good amount. You know, that's up to you whether you like it more or less. This is granulated garlic. The author of the story online recommended powder garlic, which I really don't like. I think it's got a chemical taste. This has a much more truer flavor, and it's easier to handle as well. So you can spread it more easily. Kind of like a fine salt, really, in a way. And just put enough to cover the top. And then you're going to repeat on the other side. Okay, so we're getting ready to cook our chicken breast, and rather than use the oil as a temperature indicator for a smoking hot temperature, you can use a infrared heat gun. I highly recommend this, especially if you are new to cooking and you have a difficult time understanding what the correct temperature is. You can use this gun, and it'll give you very accurate readings on every area of the pan. Instead of using just a little bit of olive oil, we're going to use a lot. Olive oil is a great conductor of heat, and that will help our meat brown really evenly as we go. This is on medium to medium-high heat, like about six on a stove. We're going to go ahead and put that down in there, and you're going to get a nice sizzle. It shouldn't be going mad. It should just be doing that sizzle like it is there. And that's what we want. And now you can see that this is moving along. We're able to control the heat. You don't want high heat because it's going to get away from you. You're not going to be able to control how you brown it. And note how we're using this oil here, kind of swirl around to make sure that all sides of the chicken breast are getting some of that hot oil. And that's what's going to give us a nice brown. I like to use a regular metal pan. You can also use a cast iron pan if you have one. I wouldn't recommend using non-stick because you're not going to get that browning effect that you want. And I certainly wouldn't use a pot. So we're going to let this go for a couple of minutes. Another thing you can do is incorporate some fresh herbs while you're cooking, and that will really make a difference on your chicken. It'll make it better than just regular old chicken that anybody can cook. It'll elevate it to that next level. So we got some fresh thyme here, and again we're going to go ahead and swirl that oil through. And that oil is going to pick up the flavor of that thyme, and so is the chicken. So I think we're in a pretty good position here to turn this over. Looking at the sides here, they look like they're starting to cook, and we can lift it off the pan pretty easily. And as you see here, we've got a very nice brown. Not too brown, not too light. And we're going to move that oil around again. Now, instead of putting a lid on this and letting it simmer, we're going to do it the correct way, which is to put it in a hot oven. This oven has been preheated at 375. We're just going to go ahead and put him in there and set a timer for 10 minutes. Okay, so 10 minutes are up, and we're going to open the oven door and see what our chicken looks like. Always wear a good mitt or use a dry kitchen cloth to handle the skillet. And that is looking pretty good to me. Once you get that out, make sure you put something else over the handle of the skillet so you don't forget and burn yourself, as I have done many, many times in my life. Put that on there as a reminder and also to keep you safe. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is kind of check the doneness. There's a couple ways you can do this. The first way is just by touching it. If it's done, it should be firm, but not very, very firm. So we're just going to touch it. You can see there's some pliability there, but it's not very firm, and that means it's not overdone. The best way, however, is to use an internal temperature thermometer. This one I have is very, very old, and it's not terribly accurate as far as the actual temperature is concerned. Temperature, I should say. Blah. But the most important thing to remember is that you know what those numbers mean. So I know that when this is in a piece of chicken, we want it to be about 130 degrees minimum, which means it's cooked all the way through, but isn't totally overdone. So we're coming up on 130, right around 140, and it's holding steady right there. Maybe a little tiny bit more, but that's about what we want. Now we're going to take this chicken breast out of the pan. You can leave the internal temperature thermometer in it, because if you don't, when you pull it out, when it's this hot, all of the juice is going to come out of it. Now here's another nice thing that you can do with this method, and that is you can make yourself some pan gravy with what's left over in this pan. As you can see over here, there's a lot of good stuff down there, and that's what the French call fond. It's leftover protein that got browned, and there's a lot of flavor in there, some fat and some juices also. So why waste it when you can make something good out of it? So what we're going to do is we're going to use a shallot, which is like a small onion. Some people say it's kind of like a cross between an onion and garlic, which I don't really see. I feel like it's kind of like just a different tasting onion, and they're kind of a pain in the butt to peel. And we're going to go ahead and put our pan back on medium heat. We're going to take our shallot and just cut it in little sections like this, just like you'd cut an onion, and then cut it this way, and then cut it this way, and get some little, you don't have to necessarily use the whole thing if you don't like a lot of it. Okay, we just want a little bit for flavor. And there we go. A little bit longer pieces here, you can cut them again. Not terribly important, again, it's just for flavor. Now while that heats up, what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit more oil as a vessel for cooking. There we go, not that much. We want there to be enough oil in the pan to where the shallots will cook correctly. We're going to go ahead and leave that time in there. That's no problem. And you don't need this to be super high. It just needs to be enough to get those cooking. Okay, our pan was still a little bit cool when we added those shallots, so they didn't start sizzling right away, but that's okay. We don't want them to burn either, so it's always better to air to a cooler pan than a hotter one when you're doing something like this. So now we're going to go ahead and we're scraping off all the bottom, picking up that onion flavor. We're picking up the burn bits on the bottom. Going to reduce that heat a little bit. Just stir those shallots around. Get them going. And then once you've done that, you're going to add a little bit of flour. Just like this. Hope you can see that okay. And stir that around. And this is kind of what they call a roux in French cooking. It's just a way to thicken up your liquid, right? We could actually probably go with a little bit more than that. I'm going to turn this heat down even more. Don't want necessarily these onions to burn. Just a little bit more flour in there. And now we're going to go ahead, stir that around some more. You want about the same amount of flour as you have of fat, and you really just need to kind of eyeball that. Okay? Again, scraping all this stuff off. It's going to start getting sticky as the flour cooks. And again, this is not a non-stick pan. So now, got that flour incorporated. Just get some chicken stock, store-bought chicken stock, any kind will do. And we're going to pour some in there. Probably about a quarter cup to start with is what I did here. And we're going to turn the heat back up. Let that cook out a little bit. And you see as it boils, it starts to thicken pretty quickly. So that's when you're going to want to add some more till it gets to the right consistency. That's getting there. That's getting there. That's about what we want. We've got some nice brown shallot in there, I should say, and some thyme, and all the leftover bits on the bottom. And that's come up to a boil. It's got a pretty good thickness. It's not too thick, so we can go ahead and turn that off and remove it from the heat. So our chicken is cooled down sufficiently. The temperature shows about 128 degrees-ish. And so we can go ahead and take this out. It's not going to seep out of that hole anymore. The juice isn't going to start trying to come out of there. And you'll see here, there is some grain on the chicken breast. See, right here where it separates? So you don't want to cut it directly across because when you bite it, it'll be a little on the tough side. So you always want to cut across the grain. And so we're just going to do just like this. And look how juicy this is right now. This hasn't been brined. You saw me do it step by step. We're going to cut that, and look at that. That's perfectly done and juicy. This is a Mary's air-chilled free-range chicken breast, but you can get the same results with any chicken breast. If you can't get that specific brand or even an organic breast at your store, it's no big deal. It'll still come out beautifully, and you see you're getting some beautifully cooked, all white, no pink, but still really, really juicy. Now, we can take this chicken and put it on our plate, just like this. Move this out of the way into our sink. Paper towel's a good way to keep your cutting board from slipping, by the way. We'll move this over here, and now we can put on our beautiful pan gravy, which we just made. And you can imagine if you just had maybe some mashed potatoes or something to go with this. And that Outside Magazine is actually how you cook a chicken breast.